everybody. This is City Scrapper. Thanks so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I made using the August My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. The August kit had papers and embellishments from a 49th and Market collection that was called Vintage Artistry Beached. It's a beautiful collection and I really enjoyed working with it. This is the 6th layout that I made using this particular kit. I'm starting off the layout inking some die cuts. I have a number of die cuts and I'll put all the information about the dies that I used in the description box. I'm using a Sizzix die, I'm using a Spellbinders die, and also an IO die. I wanted to mix together different kinds of tropical leaves and I also wanted them to be different sizes. I found 2 different dies that were similar but different sizes, the 2 kind of fern-like dies. And then those smaller leaves that I'm inking right now, those are all from the same Spellbinder set. There were 6 different sizes of that leaf in the die set. In order to color the leaves, I'm using some Distress Oxides in different colors of green. I used peeled paint, mowed lawn, and pine needles. I started with the lightest color, which was peeled paint, and then I added a little bit of mowed lawn closer to the edges of the leaves, and then I finished off by inking the edges with some pine needles, which is the darkest color. The leaf that you see here was part of the kit, and one of the branding strips had phrases on it that I thought would look really nice on the layout. And here I'm cutting each of them out. And I just love that when collections have something on the packaging or the branding strips that you can include on your layout. This large palm leaf had a white border. I didn't want to totally cut away the white border, but I did want to make it smaller. So I used my cutter bee scissors and I just went around and made the border a lot thinner. Now I'm going to be inking the edges of the embellishments that I'm planning to use on my layout. I'm using some Distress ink in Vintage Photo and I'm inking the edges of everything, and you can see on that long film strip and the window with the shutters, I not only inked around the outside, I inked around the inside edges as well. And I added just a touch of the Vintage Photo to the edges of the leaves. And the leaves were die cut from a piece of green pattern paper that was in the kit. This is the photo I'm going to be using, and I'm using the window and the shutters to frame the picture. The photo is of both of my daughters. We were on vacation in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and it was such a beautiful sunny day. The sky was so blue. All of the pictures came out so well from this day. I just love scrapbooking this batch of pictures. And I really like that frame with the shutters around it. I'm going to put the film strip underneath. I'm using a piece of packaging and I'm backing the film strip openings with that blue diagonal print, using some ATG adhesive to hold it down. I thought that this strip would be a nice base to rest the photo with the shutters on top of. I'm going back in now and I'm just trimming back a little bit of the paper that I used behind the film strip die cut. There are some notches on the sides of the film strip, so I didn't want the pattern paper to be sticking out, or the paper, the packaging, to be sticking out. I'm going to use this thick piece of white cardstock to mount both the photo and the long film strip too. The reason that I want to have a piece of cardstock behind the photo is that I want to add some embellishments, but I don't want to add them directly to the background. I want to be able to move the cluster around. This is something that I do regularly. I like to have the option of being able to move the cluster around the page. Sometimes I want to take the cluster off and do some mixed media on the background, and other times I'll start building the cluster and then I won't like where I have it on the background. So this way I can complete the cluster and then I can decide where I want the placement to be. And now I'm bringing in a whole bunch of embellishments from the kit. There are some chipboard pieces. For example, the starfish is a chipboard piece, and there are a whole bunch of die cuts. And I arrange those small banners that I cut out of the branding strip underneath the photo on top of the film strip. In addition to the big cluster, I have a small cluster up at the top. There's a banner that says "Living the Good Life," and I layered another fishtail banner behind it. Now I'm bringing in those leaves that I worked on earlier, and I'm just really tucking them around the outside of that very large cluster. I have the larger, more fern-like leaves on the top, and then I use those smaller tropical leaves right around the film strip. I put the large tropical leaf that I had fussy cut the border of earlier on top of the photo, and it's different from the other leaves, or a little bit different at least, so I thought that it would be best to put it by itself, and I thought that that would be a good spot for it. The title is Our View of Paradise. I'm using some fun foam to pop it up just to give it a little bit more emphasis, and that's going to stay on the lower right hand corner, and I'm putting some leaves behind it, and I'm also including one of the coral flowers that I have several of on the layout, and I like to do that with the title. I like to put elements that tie it into the rest of the layout. So I'm happy with that banner cluster that's on the top, so I attached all of that together, and now I'm popping up and attaching down all of those little phrases that I had fussy cut out. To the right of the photo, I layered quite a few die cuts around that circle that says beach please, but I didn't attach anything down. So now I'm going in and I'm committing to where I want each of those pieces. I'm using some ATG adhesive and I'm attaching them down. Next, I want to attach down the die cut that's above the photo and below the photo. I want to make sure that it's attached to the cluster and not to the background, so I put some adhesive on the front of the one on the bottom, and then I attach it down. And on the one on top of the photo, I used a little bit of paper because I wanted to put it right at the edge. I wanted as much of that die cut to show as possible, so that piece of cardstock will help to hold it in place. Now I'm going to start working on a cluster to the left-hand side of the photo. Because there are so many leaves, it's not as clear around the photo where the clusters begin and end, but I think that by the end you'll be able to see where the main areas of the clusters are. And I think that that happens when I begin to add some of the dimensional flowers that are included in the kit. I've added the majority of the embellishments that I plan on adding, so now I'm cutting away some of that white paper that's still showing. We don't want that visible in the final layout. And now I'm going to start adding those flowers. I just love this blue flower with the wooden bead in the center. I thought it was such a great color, and I love the way it looks next to the coral and the pink. And then I added a lighter blue in the cluster that is on the right-hand side. And there were a whole bunch of very small pink roses in this collection. They were light pink and darker pink, and I thought those were a great addition and went perfectly with this collection. I love when embellishments are different sizes. To me, clusters are so much more interesting when there are embellishments in a variety of sizes in them. When the embellishments are all the same size, I feel like it's just not as eye-catching. I'm also adding some small blue flowers to the top cluster and the bottom cluster, and the roses as well. I want to make sure that I have those spread across the page. Since the branch that's over the photo is partially on the photo and partially on the background, I am popping up some of the leaves so that the leaves that are against the background will be lifted up and sit correctly on the layout. I'm using some white foam so that in case I don't cut the strips of foam perfectly, you won't be able to notice as much as you would if I had used a less neutral color. And now I'm going to add some adhesive to the leaves. I want to be very careful that I put it on very gently because sometimes I have been known to rip a piece of paper apart by pressing a little bit too hard, but luckily this embellishment stayed intact. And I don't show all of the footage of this, but I use some gel glue and I attach down the embellishments to the background. Sometimes at the last minute I go in with some mixed media, but in this case I decided that I didn't need anything on this layout. So I put some adhesive on the back of the cluster and I attach it down to the background paper. I'm playing around a little bit with those leaves that are to the left of the photo. Those weren't attached down to the cluster, so I am placing them back basically where they were before. And then I'm going to attach those directly down to the pattern paper. The spot underneath the sign on the right-hand side looked a little bare to me, so I have another one of those larger leaves, so I tucked that behind the sign and attached that down. And I found this embellishment. This is a chipboard sailboat, and I thought that that would look nice in the cluster to the left. Now I'm adding one of my favorite touches to the layout, which is some pearls. These are round no-hole pearls. And I thought that there was enough color on the background that I didn't need to introduce more color, so I'm just using some white pearls to embellish the layout. I'm using 4 different sizes of pearls, from a very large one down to a really, really tiny one. And again, I love the variety of sizes, and I love the way that it finishes off the layout. And I love the idea of adding pearls to a beach layout. So I'm just spreading those pearls around and just trying to find some little spots that look bare or look like they could use a little extra embellishment. And I'm tucking those pearls in. Sometimes they roll away, but then when I glue them down, I'll tuck them back into the little corners and the little spots where I had originally wanted them. I find the bigger they are, the more they roll out of the spot that I put them in. I use some gel glue and I go all the way around the layout and attach down all the pearls. In a few spots, I add a smaller pearl next to a bigger pearl. I like the way those 2 different sizes look right next to each other. Now I'm finally cutting the branding strip off the bottom of this layout. I usually do that first, but every once in a while I wait till the end. I cover up my photo and I'm going to add some white splatters. I am using some watered down white acrylic paint and I'm splattering all around the background. I don't mind if the splatters go on the background or the embellishments. I just don't want them to get on the photo, so I keep a piece of plastic in my desk drawer. This plastic is getting a little dirty and warped, but it still works. When I get a chance, I'll replace it with a newer one. I add a few more white splatters on the right, and that completes the layout. Here are some close-ups of the layout. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would greatly appreciate a thumbs up. I hope that you'll take a look in the description box. You'll find the link to the My Creative Scrapbook website, and you could see all of the beautiful kits that they have available this month. This kit is called the Limited Edition Kit, and there are several other kits that are also available. I hope everybody has a fantastic day. I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.